All right, welcome to Chapter 4, Romantic Involvement, Dating, Pairing, and Courtship. We're going to continue on right into this second unit, talk about how families oftentimes begin with some romantic involvement, if even that is an arranged courtship by the family. Okay, so the human connection is one that inevitably requires companionship. It can be difficult, it can require a lot of time, a lot of energy, and it can be disheartening. If you are looking for a partner or a spouse, it can become quite difficult. It can actually be all-consuming in some cases. A Pew report in 2006 found that 55% people had reported no interest in a relationship. So it can be difficult, and we'll share that at the outset. But regardless of its difficulty, people still engage in dating. The courtship is what dating was previously known as. So this preceded the more modern type of involvement, and it does still exist. It used to be a process that was exclusive, the process by which commitment to marriage is developed. Marriage was the desired end. Courtship was simply a means. So the closed courtships were arranged. The families would oftentimes choose a groom and a bride. Now today, arranged marriages still occur, specifically in many Indian cultures. 90% of all Indians will have arranged marriages, but today there's a modern variation, especially Indians who've immigrated. You see this as many cases. Oftentimes, the parents are consultants. They openly and actively request the young people's input. So there have been consequences to these arranged marriages and various arrangements. Blind marriages, for instance. Couples would meet on the wedding day. In some societies, there was a bride price, and a man must pay the money or property to the future bride's family. You probably have heard of a dowry. This would include money, property, or goods a woman brings to the marriage, usually by the woman's father. And the idea is you're taking on the burden of my daughter, so therefore we will compensate you so you can get her off my hands. Now, obviously, that's tongue-in-cheek, but that was the nature of times, especially in many ancient societies. You have the elopement, where the daughter and son run off without the blessing of the family. And you also have forced marriage, where couples are coerced against their own will to marry, in many cases under great duress. So this open courtship is a system which most people generally make their own decisions about choosing their partner. You can think of the relationship market as a system that allows prospective partners to shop for and evaluate the aspects and liabilities of a potential partner. And it very much is a market. The online phenomenon has even accentuated this idea, right? You just swipe right if you're interested, swipe left if you're not, and the idea here is that you have to compete with the others on the market. So traditional partner shoppers have selected different strategies based on their gender. Men have used power and jobs to lure women. Women use domestic skills and beauty to lure men in the traditional context. If you look at dating ads, historically, they've even been specifically worded attractive female, successful, confident men. Today, there is a movement towards egalitarian partnership where a man selling himself may actually express interest in carrying the whole load of household chores. So we see a mutual willingness to share responsibility. In fact, when couples are more equally educated and make equal amounts of money, they share household responsibilities more equally. Courtship gave way to the dating market, specifically dating. You see this in the 50s with a stereotypical guy in a white t-shirt, a girl in a poodle skirt meeting up at the hop with roller skate, waitresses. The idea here is meeting people for socially exclusive or even long-term relationships. This is almost, even today, seen as old-fashioned, as it's given way to the free love of the 60s and 70s, where there really was not a commitment emphasis. Today, the concept of hookups even extends this to youth culture, where the idea is simply no relationship is necessary at all. So we see a change in the meaning of sexuality. In the 50s, dating sort of was a new phenomenon, and it underscored the purpose of sex. It was thought that sex was for procreation and not recreation. And this is sort of extended, and as time has progressed, the free love movement made sexuality even more recreational. And today in the hookup culture, it can be even more so. So the end in and of itself is not really family. It is really a self-fulfillment. Recreation is seen as more important by many, not all. And dating can be seen as a means to an end of self-fulfillment, and possibly even an end in and of itself. So dating also is used for companionship, avoiding isolation. Perhaps emotional intimacy is seen among the younger. People are prolonging marriage, so they may even prolong marriage through dating relationships that extend on indefinitely through cohabitation. Other reasons why people date are for socialization, and even in cases of status achievement, where dating is used to help someone enhance their social position. And obviously, one's values will underscore all of these things. So the purpose of dating, is it for marriage or is it an end in and of itself? Underscores what values you may have. So here we have different types of dating. Going steady, so dating one person exclusively. Pack dating, dating in small groups without committing. Pack dating is usually where people will partner up, but the emphasis is more on the group. Serious dating, we begin to see people spending less time with friends and more time with each other, seeing each other exclusively, and spending most of their leisure time together. This leads up to engagement, which is a public commitment to marry. There is also the prenuptial agreement, which is a legal document stipulating financial arrangements in the event of the divorce. I can remember in my lifetime these really coming on the scene, being very controversial. A lot of times they're associated with very wealthy people who have money. If you're broke, as was the case with me and my wife, it was really a moot point. And disengagement occurs when there is a breakdown of the engagement and the relationship. Some still see dating as a filter. The idea is to achieve homogamy. So I want to find someone who is similar to me. That's what homogamy means. Marital propinquity is spatial closeness. 90% of people will marry someone within 100 miles. We also practice endogamy. This is expectation to marry within certain parameters. Exogamy. This is expecting to marry outside of certain parameters. So if you violate homogamy, you're marrying outside of your race. If you're marrying outside of your age, what that would mean is this would be guys marrying older women, because historically guys have married younger and women have married older men. We also could violate homogamy by marrying someone of a different social class. Most people will marry someone within their social rank. Most people will marry someone within their own religion or their spiritual identity. Marrying someone with similar levels of education. By political affiliation and open-mindedness, we really mean acceptance of new ideas. The way I would treat number 6 is, are the couple likely to move? Are they likely to stay in their hometown? People typically marry someone of their similar attractiveness. Attractiveness can be measured, but usually it's measured by the group, right? The group ranks people in terms of perceived attractiveness, and people who are high up typically stay with other people who are similar physical appearance. We are also commonly similar in terms of attachment, what our parents' marital status were, our personality dynamics, our economic values, and debt management. So, are we two spenders? Are we two savers? Or vice versa? I like this photo. It's sort of the bygone era. If you look at the infograph on the right, most people, as I mentioned in the previous slide, will pair up according to these 12 dynamics. Acceptance of interracial marriage has gained popularity. It's been relaxed. So my generation, Generation X, 86% of us would say it is acceptable to date. And the generation, most of my students, millennials, 18 to 30 years of age, say 93% of them would say it's okay. If you look at my parents' generation, I actually think those data at 83% is probably too high. When you look at people in their 70s right now, those people born in 1940 are historically generally opposed to interracial marriage. Interracial marriage was actually illegal in South Carolina until 1997. At how marriages begin. The first step is usually physical attraction. This would lead to stage 2, a comparing of values and issues like ambition, child rearing, politics. And stage 3 would include roles, such as who manages the work, who keeps the house, what role will leisure play, in our family. Now, just because two people have the same values, don't mean they have the same level of commitment to those values. So people may be traditional in theory, but not in practice. That's also a hidden dilemma, is that a person may value egalitarian marriage in theory, but not in reality, not in practice. So in relationship-driven filtering, the couple has grown in their commitment, and they have communicated their personal preferences, values, and goals. In event-driven filtering, there may be vacillation between commitments, between arguments, making up from the arguments. This can involve friends, opinions, and also this cycle can be addictive for couples. Sometimes people get stuck in conflict or event-driven filtering. So we look at fields of interaction. We basically see open fields and closed fields. Open fields of interaction are settings in which people do not normally interact. Thus, potential partners are not likely to meet. So you're not likely to meet the love of your life in a shopping mall. The pool of people is so large in places like an airport or a concert or ski resorts or beaches that you usually just don't find yourself connecting. So the larger and more anonymous settings discourage people from connecting. So in the smaller fields, closed fields, people do find themselves more likely to interact, and potential partners may meet. The pool of people is smaller, such as a private party, a class, a church group, and small workplace settings, such as the home of friends. These smaller settings encourage more one-on-one interaction. So market research by Match.com found that people were more likely to meet their spouse at work than they were online. So online dating sites accounted for only 17%. Being introduced by a friend occurred at about 26%. Other research would indicate that 2% of people meet their spouse at church. 3% meet their spouse at a dating website. 34% meet their spouse through family or friends. 38% meet their spouse at work or a school. And only 13% are meeting at clubs, bars, and other social gatherings. People will oftentimes say that personal introductions are the best way to meet. Blind dates used to be awkward, but today people are Facebook stalking, and so usually you know something about the person that you're dating. In fact, my students have told me that they will Facebook stalk someone even before they know them, right? So if someone comes in, sits down next to them in class, chances are they already know something about them. And that's the point at which I say it is what it is. I think most of my students would say that may not be the best way, but it is the way it is. So the second most popular way that couples have met would be some sort of internet-based relationship or a closed field setting. Now, I made mention of classified or personal ads. They first appeared in the 60s as part of the countercultural or the hippie lifestyle, and they promoted anonymity. They thought this was going to be a time saver and would give a great deal of exposure. However, women were oftentimes marketing themselves as attractive, trim. Men were oftentimes marketing themselves with words such as intelligent, professional, and tall. All right, so online dating has basically taken personal ads to a new level. You basically have online dating and you have social networking sites that now people use to facilitate dating. So with online dating, you see eHarmony versus Tinder. eHarmony is kind of the people seeking a marriage, as marriage is the end, and Tinder is essentially the hookup dating app where you don't really provide any information. It's simply a person's externals. I think a lot of people are simply relying on their social networking, and if you find someone that you're interested in, you may just simply slide them a DM, as my students say, and send them a direct message. And oftentimes these facilitate partnering up. There are some advantages of internet access to dating. Specifically, some would argue that you have a wider variety of potentials. Yep, good for people in isolated or rural areas. Also, if you are of a specific religious group and there's not a lot of people of your faith around, so hence Christian mingle, etc. Some people would say there's a minimal investment of time, and also that if you have an area of interest where physical attraction isn't primary. Disadvantages: you don't have any idea of a person's nonverbal communication. People may exaggerate, or they may not be in touch with reality. And there is a sense to which people are fighting propinquity, right? We're fighting against the way people have always connected with some connection. And also there's the danger of anonymity. Perhaps this person is not who they claim to be. Perhaps there's the risk of being catfished. So all of these are interesting debates. I'd be interested to find out what you think. So here are some websites and the reported usage. So this was based on data from an online search or research on dating sites. Match.com, 23.8 million. eHarmony, 7.1 million. Who basically the most monthly visitors. Zoosk, 10.5 million. And since this time, you've also had Tinder and other dating apps that have come online. This is a record of social networking sites and how frequently people visit. So Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. LinkedIn is actually an employment networking site. I really don't know how many people would say they've met someone they're dating or family member. They've met a marriage, potential spouse on LinkedIn. Usually Facebook and Twitter, the most usual suspects. Not to mention Snapchat and Instagram. There are other introduction services, such as matchmaking services that evaluate a pool of potential partners for you. Video dating would allow you to watch a person before you meet. Marriage bureaus will arrange meetings for a fee. And even mail order brides. In China, there was a one-child rule policy. Chinese people preferred males, so today there is a shortage of women. There are other Asian countries that are providing mail order wives. So literally, people will open a catalog. Men will look through this catalog, find a wife, and will order. There's also mail order brides from Russia. Russia's also one that you see a lot of marriage bureaus arranging meetings with Russian women. This is a reality. This is not fabricated. Also, probably not common. You may not know anyone that's in America that has found a mail order bride, but it would be more common in other countries. So there are definitely variations in dating. Traditional courtship methods from 1950 to 1970, you'd see the boy asking the girl out. The girl would get ready. The boy would meet, chat with parents, perhaps even ask the father's permission before dating. They would go to a pre-planned event. Boys would pay for everything. Girls were expected to respond and not pursue. If this went well, there might be the prospect of going steady, in which case you would not go on dates with anyone else. This could lead to an engagement and eventually expanding family ties, such as marriage, and then having children. So on campuses today, there's a variety of dating and other romantic engagements, if you'd like to call it that. There's simply hanging out, spending time in an unstructured group. There are also what people know as hookups. Hooking up is a physical encounter, likely sexual, without a commitment. You have joined at the hip or playing married in college, and then you have long distance dating. So individuals are perhaps dating in high school and they move off to college, separate colleges, and the transitions can be difficult if long distance dating does not progress to engagement. So you have sometimes one partner moving on, and it's oftentimes not successful. So complications exist as individuals progress in their developmental arc. So once you enter the workplace, people still spend a great deal of time away from home. So they're about 47 hours a week at work. 10 million Americans enter into an office romance every year. Surveys say 40 to 60% of workers have dated someone at work. This is oftentimes an ethical dilemma. 47% of women and 36% of men feel it can jeopardize job performance. 12% of 391 companies surveyed had written guidelines prohibiting office romances. It is generally not a good idea. Problems arise when supervisors date employees because of sexual harassment issues. Here's just Stovall's rule of thumb. Anytime there is someone in authority, it complicates things, and it would be my strong recommendation against it. In fact, there's quite a bit of literature on this. If you're at your job site and if you find someone attractive, if you're considering a long-term dating relationship, or even spending time with them outside of the office, at some point it would be good to discuss this. There have been many people who've even requested transfers within the company to different departments, so as to not complicate their workplace. It's a good idea to keep your work and your personal life separate. For those who are single again or second time around dating, things can present unique challenges. So a single parent, divorced, widowed, or singles over the age of 65, dating can come with its own set of rules and challenges. And perhaps you may not know these rules till you're already in the game. Some interesting research on breakups. Researchers claim that women are quicker to break up. They may cite boredom, betrayal, physical separation, parental pressure, someone new, someone old, different values, or cheating. Now, men still break up, and for the same reasons. Of 10,000 breakups on Facebook, research indicates most are on Mondays, interestingly enough. Most people break up before spring break and 2 weeks before Christmas, when they actually have to go home. So that might give you some insight on breaking up. There are many different ways that people react to a breakup. We're going to look at the neglect response. This one says, just let the relationship go ahead and fall apart. So the breakup is a default from inaction. So people just basically start pulling back gradually. The second would be a destructive reaction fueled by anger and rage. So I see where this is heading. You're pulling back, so I push forward. Then we see the person not really interested in the relationship. Men will oftentimes simply start neglecting. Symptoms will include chronic complaints, frequent criticism, refusal to discuss issues, physical avoidance, like literally not talking to the person. Okay, so if you're dating an individual, you start avoiding their calls. That is possibly a step towards neglect. And then eventually the relationship will die. The next would be the exit response, where the conflict fuels a conversation. Now, this is more common with young people. Usually it's a short-term relationship with little investment. And I'm amazed at how students report to me that the breakups are actually happening over text message. And as I'm writing this, talking through this lecture, thoughts are coming to me. I'm curious as to how many of you have broken up with someone via text message. So that is coming in a discussion board. I'm just letting you know. Also, other symptoms would include withdrawing or threatening to withdraw from a relationship. Then you have some who react with loyalty. People start to see greater commitment in spite of difficulties. This is passive but can be constructive. You see this with older couples, and sometimes it's passive aggressive. So individuals feel as though they're invested enough to avoid breaking it off, but they just continue on in a relationship that seems negative or has negative aspects. Symptoms are that one passive person usually supports the critical member, continuing to have hope it will work itself out. As I said before, it can be passive aggressive. There can be tension built up, and so issues are not resolved. Next, you have the voice response, where you would see someone say directly, we need to talk about improving our relationship. This is active and constructive. It is not passive. And sometimes people are invested, but they also value the relationship. It's not just that they're invested because they have to be, but they want to be. Both are willing to address issues. They're also willing to address their own behavior. So here you see people talking constructively, seek counseling, and compromising. One study reported that most ended their relationship face-to-face. Men 75% and women 68% of the time. 9% of men ended a relationship by phone. 19% of women did. And 10% of women and 16% of men simply let the relationship fade away. The digital world makes uncoupling more complicated because people feel as though they can make very rash decisions, or they do make rash decisions. And maybe they don't think things through. And these repercussions have ripple effects and over time create other complications. So look forward to your digital breakup stories. Take care.